What's going on, fight fans? We are back again on FranchiseSportsMedia.com with the main event podcast. I'm your host, Kalani Lil, along with my co-host, Griff and Kim. Griff, UFC 276 in the books for International Fight Week. What are your takeaways?
I think it lived up to the hype. I think we got a card tonight for International Fight Week that we were expecting. We had some lows, but a whole lot of highs. We got a lot of fights that came out tonight, and a lot of questions got answered, and a lot of people got entertained by a great night of fights.
Speaking of entertainment, on this particular card, in the main card, no takedowns whatsoever. You had these young commentators saying, hey, I'm disappointed in this, but by no means were we ever short of action. We had in the main event, Israel Adesanya, Izzy, going out there, coming out with the greatest, I don't care what nobody says, the greatest entrance of all time, channeling his Undertaker. Coming out and let him know whose yard it is. He wins a unanimous decision on Jared Cannonier. Very quickly, Kemp, what are your thoughts on Izzy's performance against Cannonier?
Well, what we know about Cannonier, he fought at what, heavyweight?
Yep.
Light heavyweight, now at middleweight.
Yep.
It almost, during that entire fight, it looked like Izzy was back when he was fighting Jan Blachowicz. He was fighting a bigger man, a man who has experience fighting at that heavier weight class. Cannonier's strikes were heavy, strong. You knew Izzy could not be hit by one of those, but that's exactly what he avoided. He used speed. He used technique to bob and weave. He was too fast for Cannonier. He didn't knock out Cannonier, but he won the fight because he did not take those damage. He didn't take the damage. He used his speed to avoid it. And once again, that belt's still around Izzy Adesanya. Still the greatest middleweight
and still. The technique of Israel Adesanya is very fascinating. One, he's not a one-hit power striker, but he's somebody that will stand in front of you, likes to use a lot of feints, throws a lot at you to see how you react so that he can come with counters. We see that when he's leaning to the left, that right hand coming at you deadly. If you try to lean in too quick, lean to the right. Maybe the left may come back with a right hook. He's slipping and jabbing. He really kept Cannonier guessing, and in a way, if I could relate it to another sport, it was almost like watching the Golden State Warriors defeat the Boston Celtics. Someone with more experience, Izzy, i.e. the Warriors, taking on somebody who was very talented in Cannonier, but did not have the big match, big stage, bright lights experience, Cannonier, i.e. the Celtics. Cannonier, I'm sure, worked his way back into it. He will be a better fighter going down the road. But Israel Adesanya once again proves at 185 today, I'm the baddest man walking in Griff. I say today, because we know who's next. We know who's there. We're going to get there in a second, but we know who's next for him. And it's somebody Izzy is quite familiar with. It is going to be a fantastic showing later on.
Yep.
Now, if we switch it up and go to the co-main event, talk about fantastic showings. Now, I know for my 808 fam, it was hard to watch. But Alexander, the great Volkanovski, once again proves I'm just better than Max Holloway. And tonight he did it without any questions, dominating 50-45 across the board decision victory. What were your thoughts on the main event of Volkanovski showing against Holloway?
Let me just be the first. Volkanovski, Mr. Volkanovski. Let me just go ahead and apologize. I was one of the naysayers. I was one who said the first one, you got lucky. The second one, you got bailed out. He proved the haters wrong. He proved every single naysayer wrong. He said it wasn't the judges. It wasn't luck. It was the fact that I, standing today, right now, am the greatest featherweight, maybe possibly of all time. And here's the thing. With the fight, with him beating Max now 3 times, with him this run he's been on, it's hard to say when you look at the greats of the featherweight division, how do you not put Volkanovski above Holloway at this point? I mean, Holloway, that's not taking anything away from Holloway. This fight tonight, as anything proved, you didn't see a bad version of Holloway and a great version of Volkanovski. You saw both fighters improved since their last bout. Both fighters got better, but Volkanovski went from here to here. He is absolutely going down as one of the greatest featherweights of all time. And I cannot wait to see if he's really going to stand by his word and say, Charles Oliveira, you're next.
Don't. We are not going to talk about it. And listen, I've said it on this show, and I'll tell you once again, we do not say Charles Oliveira. It is Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
You got to stretch it out. That's how you say his name on this show, okay? I would not have it any other way right here on the main event. But I agree with you. We did not see a bad Max Holloway. It's just Volkanovski was so much better. This was like watching Usain Bolt at the Olympics. Oh, if Usain is not there, a lot of you guys win gold medals, you set world records, that's great. I'm a few paces in front of you where I can smile, look back, and not run fast all the way down. His speed, his power, his aggressiveness. And to me, that's what I felt was going to be a major difference going into this bout. Because if you look at his last 2 matches against the Korean Zombie, which almost was highway murder. You look at his performance against Brian Ortega. Volkanovski showed a different level. In part, you can say because of his first 2 matches against Holloway, because they were close battles, because he took on one of the true greats at 145, it allowed Volkanovski to up his game. If I'm going to beat him, I need to get better. And by doing so, when I take on everyone else that's below him, I'm just going to be that much better tonight. He put it all together. It was one of those where his speed coming in and out, that overhand right, I don't know what the percentage was at the very end, but it was very high, well over 60, 70% of lands on Max Holloway. Give Holloway all the credit in the world. Give him his roses. Not only is he one of the greatest featherweights of all time, man's never been knocked down. He took the strikes. Look, it just wasn't his night. We know Max is going to bounce back. Whether it's at 45, 55, we know he's going to bounce back and still be one of the greats. But the great, Alexander Volkanovski, is the king of 145. Does he welcome Triple C, Henry Cejudo? Does he maybe try a super fight at 155 against you know who the real king at 55 is? Alexander. We shall see. But Alexander Volkanovski, phenomenal showing by him. If we were to change gears and keep on the same line with phenomenal showings, Izzy Adesanya found out who his next opponent is going to be. The third fight on the card, we had Alex Pereira. Go out there and brought a left hand. He brought it from Brazil all the way to Las Vegas, knocking out Sean Strickland in the first round. But anyways, Pereira does his showing unranked, knocks out the 4th ranked middleweight. What was your takeaway?
I see it as Sean Strickland was on this uprise. He was on a great run. It was looking like Sean Strickland. It looked like he had arrived. He was thinking in his head, it's my time now. I get my shot at Izzy Adesanya. I get my time to try and put that strap around my waist. But he said, Dana White, Izzy Adesanya's history with him. They all stopped that right in its tracks. Because this man, Alex Pereira, comes out of nowhere. Everyone wants to say, including me, saying this man's only here because of his history with Izzy Adesanya in a completely different sport. I know it's still combat. I know it's still fighting with hands and fists, but it is a completely different sport.
Kickboxing.
Yes, it's a completely different sport. But everyone was saying that. But an unranked fighter with only 3 fights in the UFC comes in and takes on the number 4 ranked middleweight. And he knocks him out cold with that left hand. Who could have seen it? I might have seen it. But
I'll tell you who didn't see it.
Sean Strickland.
No, not at all.
Ooh.
It was a tremendous showing by Alex Pereira. And yes, he's brought in for, look, sometimes you may get this. A fighter who comes to the UFC, maybe his last loss or one of his big losses outside the UFC, if that fighter is able to put together some wins, they say, hey, let's bring him over, see what you can do. Give you a fight or two. If you can live up to the hype, you can go ahead and do it. They tried to do it with a foe of Conor McGregor. Sorry to say that name, but it is. But he wasn't able to capitalize on it in the UFC. Pereira has shown, I'm ready for Israel Adesanya. He's cleared out the 185 division. There's nobody else left here. I just beat your number 4 ranked guy. It is time for us to do it. We are in July. Izzy's probably going to take a little bit of time off. Don't know if he's suffering any injuries. Hey, Griff, doesn't the UFC like to do a nice big pay-per-view in November, but not on the West, but somewhere in the East Coast? I heard it's at a pretty good arena that everyone knows.
Pretty well known.
Pretty well known.
I
think some people will say it's the most known, most famous arena in all the world, Madison Square Garden. So UFC, New York, Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira, middleweight strap on the line.
Could this be the actual challenge Izzy Adesanya has been waiting for? He's had his fight with Kevin Gastelum. He had those fights. He had Robert Whittaker. He had those challenges. What if this is it? What if this is it? Izzy Adesanya, possibly going down as the greatest middleweight of all time, he is finally getting his arc. It is coming to the climax of his career. The man who beat you striking, not going up to a heavy division and just grappling, waiting for the coaches to give you the win. No, he is going against the man who, before y'all entered into this organization, he knocked you out cold. And now that man is right here. That man is right here, ready to take your belt, ready to take what you've worked for, take everything you've earned in these last 4 years in your entire career in the UFC. It's leading up to be a huge fight. and
Very much
cannot wait.
Very much so. And Griff, you said something that's going to lead me into my next topic. You said this is it. Speaking of this is it, UFC 273 saw the end of a couple of careers. Don't know if Robbie Lawler, who lost to Brian Barberena, if that's the end for him, but ruthless Robbie Lawler, as long as he's been fighting, if I'm not mistaken, he's been fighting since 1998, 99. Long time.
He's been giving these knuckles.
Given a long time, if he hangs it up, more power to him. Thank you for all that you have done for this sport. But speaking of thank you, Cowboy Donald Cerrone finally hangs up the hat. He took on Jim Miller, short notice. They were supposed to have a previous fight before. That fight got shoved. He stepped in here on short notice. And it was one where you just said, you know what, Cowboy, regardless of how this ends, I've enjoyed this journey. You've been one of the greatest. You truly embraced the warrior mentality, the modern day gladiator. You lived up to your name. Cowboy. It has been an absolute fun and pleasure to watch you. I've got the pleasure to see you in person a few times. Fight, it has been absolutely phenomenal. It wasn't his time. He lost to Jim Miller via submission in the prelims, but he put his hat down saying, this is it for me. This is a guy, Cowboy Cerrone, who, kind of like modern day Kevin Holland, said, I'll fight you on a week's notice, 2 weeks notice, different weight class, I'll just put on an extra shirt. Doesn't matter. He literally lived up to anyone, anywhere, anytime, any division. It does not matter. Down on Cowboy Cerrone, we thank you for all that you've done for the sport of MMA. Well, Griff, it's been fun. International Fight Week,
Great.
Always a great time. The expo, the pay-per-view itself, the 2 title fights, it has been fun. I cannot wait to see the next one. July's got some interesting matches coming up. So you guys be sure to tune back in here to the Main Event Podcast on franchisesportsmedia.com. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Till next week, fight fans, be easy. Peace.